nutrition. Enjoy. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm delighted to be joined today with my guest, Rashad Evans. Rashad is a former UFC light heavyweight champion and UFC Hall of Famer. Rashad knows a thing or two about the connection between mind and body and the importance of having both in sync. He credits mushrooms for that 1-2 punch of focus plus energy in training and competition, and then easing the transition from fighter to quote unquote just getting back to me. He is passionate about transforming sports nutrition and transforming access to education so that others can have the same opportunities that he did. Sports injuries and the lasting mental damage caused as a result can impact athletes for decades, even after they've left the game. This is especially true for high contact sports like football and mixed martial arts. The conversation is now turning towards functional mushrooms and the health benefits they could be holding when it comes to supporting injured players. I'm looking forward to talking all things functional mushrooms, recovering from sports injuries, and the mind-body connection in today's show. Rashad, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you, Brian.
I'm really looking forward to this. And before we dive into the impact that functional mushrooms had on you and their potential for aiding in the healing of injury, amongst other things, talk about your backstory, Rashad, and what got you interested in functional mushrooms in the first place.
Towards the end of my career, I was just kind of struggling in a lot of different areas, as far as like where I was at mentally and physically speaking. I went to try to fight in New York City and I was denied access to fight in New York City. I didn't get a license, and I didn't get a license because, they say it seemed as if like I had some kind of brain injury. So I did a series of tests, and after I did a series of tests, it was determined that the injury that they found was quite old, and it's something that I had before I started in the UFC because it was on my first MRI. It alleviated the nervousness about being able to compete, but at the same time, it made me start thinking, once I retired and once I decided I was going to retire, what was my life going to be like? Was this image on the MRI, is it something that was going to come back and haunt me, or something that was going to cause me severe damage later on in my life? So I started to look into like modalities and different ways to heal my brain. So then that way, I'll be able to still do the things I enjoy doing. I'm fairly active with my children. I use my speaking a lot because I'm an analyst for the UFC, and I'm always out there. So I want to make sure that I wasn't losing any of my functionality with my speech and just all the other things. So I wanted to find something that can help, and then I started doing some research. And strangely enough, I ran into an interview with Paul Stamets and Joe Rogan. And Paul Stamets has this protocol that he uses for concussions and to heal the brain and to heal neurological issues. And it's psilocybin, lion's mane, and niacin. And I started using his protocol. I started feeling, like night and day different. Even like a couple weeks into it, I started feeling night and day different, indescribably different. And it was really hard for me to wrap my mind around, just because of the fact that, I had no idea, about functional mushrooms to begin with. And then, psilocybin and even this whole combo was doing this for me. And what I was able to feel was I started feeling as if like, mentally, I started to get a lot clearer. My interest started to change as far as like the music I like to listen to, and just kind of like a lot of different things when it came to cerebral consciousness that I started to just, sense a big difference in. And also I started to feel a big difference in my ability to just kind of neurologically function, meaning, when I was training, I felt as if like my reflexes were faster, and it was like I was, like 10 years ago, so that was something that I was kind of noticing as I got older, that I wasn't able to get to the positions that I seen, and that was part of the reason why I was kind of like, man, I don't know if I should do this no more, because I couldn't hit the openings when I seen the openings. But once I started using this combo consistently, I started to kind of, find my reaction time again. And it was something very surprising to me, because I didn't think that, I could heal like that. It was very inspiring, because at the time when I started to do this, I was also suffering from a little bit of depression and just kind of a lot of other mental issues as well. And it cleared that up as well. So I had to look into this. This was something that I really wanted to learn more about. So then I started to uncover and learn more about, psilocybin and functional mushrooms as well. And I've been on that journey ever since. And this started about 5 years ago in 2018. And, it's still going right now. So it's been able to add to my life so much. And, I'm very thankful that I'm working with a company in Umbo that actually, works with functional mushrooms.
I know, and I'm subscribed to the newsletter for Umbo, so I get everything that you've written or said, and they document a lot of the things that you've said on it. And I'm going to pull it back at some point to the psilocybin, microdosing, all of those. But for those who are unfamiliar, Rashad, with functional mushrooms, can you explain what functional mushrooms actually are? Just because there's going to be a portion of the audience listening who will have heard of it or may have listened to that Rogan podcast with Post-Amit, as you said, or, just from the introduction I've given. But talk to us about functional mushrooms, and then we'll transition out of that, because I do want to pull back to, the psilocybin, the effects on mental health, all of that, because I think that's fascinating. But talk to us first about what functional mushrooms actually are.
Well, functional mushrooms are any of the mushrooms that fall in the category of quote unquote legal, right? All these mushrooms have a huge functionality for the body. You have the lion's mane, you have the turkey tail, you have the reishi, you have the cordyceps, you have the chaga, you have so many of these mushrooms that are just absolutely amazing. And these mushrooms, they work on different aspects of the body. The lion's mane is for the brain, the turkey tail is for the gut, the cordyceps is for the lungs, the reishi is for rest and relaxation, also helps with allergies. And chaga is just good overall antioxidant, really one of the most powerful in the world. And, you have these functional mushrooms, and what they do is they're huge when it comes to the connectivity of the body, right? We're electrical beings, and what happens a lot of times, because we live in the environments that we do in that is just so littered with so many toxins, is it pollutes our neurological body. And once you pollute the neurological body, it's really hard to really rinse the neurological body clean, so that way you don't have the buildup residue. What we call old age is really nothing more than just, the culmination of just so many neurotoxins in the body that cause a deterioration for us to forget, for us to lose our ability to walk, and all the other neurological disorders you see as we age and we get older. But the psilocybin, the lion's mane, the functional mushrooms have the ability to just really start to overhaul that process and really, work on neurogenesis and neuroplasticity, the ability for your neural system to get, stronger as you get older, using these mushrooms that has, the electric conduciveness to kind of cause your body to open up new neural pathways and rebuild old ones that kind of lost the ability to kind of, pick up a signal. And once you start to light your body up with all these different signals, you start to build neural pathways to get there. So then your body starts to understand, okay, now I have a new way to go to get this electric impulse that's coming from the toe or foot or wherever that is coming from. So functional mushrooms are huge when it comes to neurological health.
And you've mentioned some great ones there: lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, reishi, ones that I take lion's mane religiously. I think like pre-podcast, pre-writing, pre-anything that involves thinking, I just think it's a wonder supplement alongside some of the others. But Rashad, what are some of the misconceptions people have around functional mushrooms? So when I heard about it first and started to experiment with them first, I had misconceptions. I've forgotten about a lot of them now, but some of them were the form in which you took them. I thought you had to eat them. I had all these misconceptions. But what are some that you generally see?
People usually think that you're going to start tripping if you take functional mushrooms. They can't really divorce the mindset from the fact that, all mushrooms are not meant to make you trip. There's a real mycophobia out there, and people just are very afraid of mushrooms and really don't understand them and don't really understand the benefits of what the mycelium can do. But the same mycelium network that builds these great communication platforms for trees and all these different plant kingdoms to communicate under the ground, pass your nutrients, pass your information, it does the same thing internally speaking. Once it gets inside of our body, it really is really good at, the same mycelium kind of connectivity. It does the same thing for the internal body. And when people realize that, these modalities are truly just, another piece of the food kingdom that we just kind of neglected over time and have grown, out of connection with, I think they're going to really start to really take control of their health in a different kind of way, because mushrooms are great for neurological health, but there's also other things that it's good at that we're still yet to find out. And that's the most fascinating thing about the whole mushroom space, is the fact that we're still so very novice in our understanding of what it truly can do for the body.
100%. And I think another area, again, my information on it is so much more limited than yours, but the immune system, and looking into how it impacts the immune system in a positive way for people that get sick or picking up colds or getting ill regularly. I think they're, again, coming down to, would I be correct in saying that it's reishi and a couple of others that are very good for that, cordyceps? I've misaligned on which ones do what, because it's normally complexes that I've used. But when it comes to immune system, were they the correct ones, or is it different ones I'm thinking of?
Yeah, you hit them right on the head. Cordyceps are really good for the lungs. Reishi's really good for just that histamine and also, keeping allergies in check and just, building up the immune system. There's so many things that these mushrooms do. And once you really start consuming them, you start to notice different things start to clear up in your body. And they're called adaptogens because what they do for you, they may not do for me. It's all depending on what your body needs, right? So it kind of goes into your body, and then it kind of, assesses the situation, and then it helps you out where you need the help the most. And, you'll start noticing different things that you didn't really know was wrong with you. You just notice that you just start feeling better in ways that you just didn't expect.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happened to me, particularly with the lion's mane in particular, and it just not getting sick, because you don't notice it when you're not getting sick. You only notice you're sick when you're ill. And then when you stop picking up every cold and flu, you're kind of like, oh, these mushrooms are pretty powerful. These functional mushrooms are working great. Rashad, why do you think people have a phobia for it? Just out of curiosity from your own experience, as somebody that, for me, I thought when I learned about them first, you had to eat them, and I don't eat normal mushrooms. So instantly I was like, no, until I learned you could get them in supplement form, etc. But why do you think people have a general phobia from your experience?
It's really a hard question to answer because, a lot of times I feel like people have a phobia for most of the time because they really haven't been exposed to them. There's not a lot of, good recipes that has mushrooms in it, so just the experience of being exposed to mushrooms kind of make them, maybe I better not eat them, and also, the fact that they look weird, right? They look weird. They don't have the most appealing look to them, and you just can't imagine them tasting good because, hell, they look crazy as hell. They look like they come from outer space. But I was really surprised. And listen, I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people who just is like, oh, I don't know, man. Mushrooms, they kind of taste like they kind of got a rubbery texture. It's a texture thing, and I just didn't like the way it felt. But I've tasted some amazing mushrooms to the point where I'm just like, man, I didn't know mushrooms could taste that good. There's lion's mane. You make lion's mane. And lion's mane is probably my favorite to eat. It tastes like crab meat a bit, and listen, I don't even eat crab meat, but it's one of those like tastes that you can, you can dip it in butter, you can put it in all kind of ways, but when you eat lion's mane, you don't really even realize that you're eating mushrooms because it just tastes so good. And there's so many mushrooms like that just taste so freaking good, but we never know because there's not a lot of popular dishes out there made with mushrooms.
And if you're not a mushroom person, you have Umbo and a company that has all the supplementation, so you can skip right to it. For people listening, I'll put those links in the show notes as well for people. I want to touch on you mentioned psilocybin earlier, and I assume from the doses you're taking and that you weren't tripping out every time you were taking it. So you're obviously microdosing it. I know I saw a photo of you with Mike Tyson. I think it was from last November at the psychedelic convention in Miami. Talk to us a little bit about psilocybin and how that has worked, because this is a fascinating topic as someone who hasn't experienced it yet, but is very interested in particularly the way the research is going, John Hopkins, etc., how it's been used for PTSD, how it's been used for mental health. It's fascinating. But talk to us about how you're using it or your experiences with it.
Well, I've used it in a multiple different ways. I've used it in a microdosing platform, which was my true introduction to psilocybin, was in a microdose setting. And, it wasn't long into the experimentation with it, I started to feel the benefits, really, really well. But I use it also in ceremonial settings where I take a heavier dose and I just kind of do the spiritual work that comes along with it, because one of the things that happens when you start to do the mushrooms is the fact that the egoic self, the self that is Rashad Evans with the story and all the things that have happened in my life, that takes a back seat, and what comes forward is the part of me that is the watcher, the one who is in the background most of the time. That one comes to the surface. Now that one comes to the surface, it's a very scary transition for the ego, because the ego feels like it's being annihilated. And when the ego feels like it's being annihilated, you have that feeling of ego death, right? Like you feel as if like you're dying, but then there's a part of you that just like, you can never die. And then that's the part that steps forward. And then you start to feel and start to have a conscious experience from that perspective. And having a conscious experience from that perspective, it completely declutters the mind, because one problem that happens with us is that we're a creature of habit, and we tend to do the same thing over and over again, and we get into these thinking ruts, where our brain thinks the same way and tries to handle the similar problems the same way over and over again, and we can't figure out why we keep on bumping our head, and because we can't or see our way out of the problem. It's because mentally we're attacking it the same way. So when the watcher, the one part of you that is a quiet part of you, the one that is the assessing part of you, comes forward, it comes forward with a new perspective. And it comes forward with the ability to see something you may be going through with whole new eyes, almost as if like, you were sitting in a therapy session with your therapist, and they just shared with you your story back to you, but they gave it to you from their perspective, and they uncovered some mind-boggling things that you didn't even think of yourself, right? But the thing about it is that makes that, this more powerful than the therapy session is the fact that this is your truth. It's not some truth that you have to get affirmed by somebody else. It becomes your truth. It becomes a realization that you come upon. So that becomes your true north, right? That becomes your new idea of what truth is. So when you come out of the medicine, you now have that set as your true north. And now you have a way of handling or even thinking about a problem that just, kept you baffled for years, maybe, and that's the power of, taking some of these, powerful doses. And another thing that I really enjoy about taking a bigger dose is the fact that when you take that deeper, that higher dose, you start to feel the reality that we subject ourselves on a daily basis is not true reality. It's more or less a prescribed reality. It's more or less pretend. And we all choose to do it. We all choose to wake up every day and just pretend. And it sounds crazy to say, it's like, I don't pretend, but we do it without even knowing. We do it just because it's what we've always done. We do it because it's what society demands of us. It demands us to pretend. It demands us to go out there and act a certain way and not truly live from the place in which we are truly feeling, So over time, after putting on the mask over and over and over again, you just get so disconnected from the most important part of you, which is the part that will remain once you pass on and transition from this life. And we get so connected to the fake, the false, the actor that we all have to play in this play of life, that we get afraid when that character, is confronted with annihilation. You know what I'm saying? And that's where, we're able to be manipulated because of that fear. We're able to be controlled because of that fear, because of, we're going to lose our position in this role, in this acting play, and we're not going to be, successful according to the standards of this matrix of society that we're all trapped in, which isn't reality, which is more or less prescribed reality. And you start to see that once you start to dive into the medicine.
With the powerful dosages, and I am going to pull back to microdosing because that's another area I'm very interested in. Do you do it regularly? Do you set a point every several months or every year? Or is it one of those that you work for the calling where you're like, I actually need to do a bit of a spiritual journey now? How do you use the more powerful doses, Rashad?
It's more or less when I feel like I'm emotionally constipated, right? Like, you feel it coming on, and the emotional constipation just comes on, when you're just handling life, right? A lot of times you're handling life and you don't got time to sit down and lick your wounds about something that happened, or, you don't got time to sit down and cry, or you just can't get to cry out, right? Sometimes the cry just gets stuck in the tear ducts. You're like, man, I want to cry, but fuck, I can't get it out. You know what I'm saying? You ever had that feeling where it's just kind of like caught in your throat and you just can't cry, but you got to cry that you want to get out? But, it's the emotional constipation when it builds up over time, and I feel like I'm getting snappy, and I feel as if like I've lost that connection that I felt, right? Like, because whenever you do any of these medicines, there's a saying they say called hold the gold, right? They hold the gold. The gold is the realization, the perspective that you had from the medicine, right? So you hold that perspective. You try to hold it as long as you can in your everyday waking life. You try to bring it into your life, the integration part, right? But it's always a difficult thing because with the integration process of having the experience and then going back to your normal life, you get pulled back into the same mindset sometimes because you're living the same life, right? And those triggers and all the things that cause you to have the mindset, they're still there. So you have to find a way to integrate it into your life, and that can be difficult. So being able to be honest with yourself, be like, yo, I'm kind of feeling like maybe I may be getting a little snappy or may not be feeling good. I need to take a break and I need to get myself right. Then you start to, then I know it's time for me to go and take a trip.
Amazing. And I think emotional constipation is a fantastic way of phrasing that. I've never heard it put that way. And I think just as a feedback, I've used therapy in different methods myself. But when I hear and speak to people like you, Rashad, who have basically got 10 years of therapy on one spiritual journey, I'm always curious to, I wonder, could I shorten the learning curve here a little bit? With the microdosing then, that was your introductory point to obviously the more powerful dosages, as you said. What were some of the effects that you found from microdosing in terms of your day-to-day? Because obviously you're not going full-on dosage that's sending you off on a spiritual journey. What was the kind of the progress that you felt with the microdosing?
I felt like I had a lot more mental acuity. Like I was just a lot sharper and just a lot more consciously aware. And that awareness, it was kind of shocking, because you don't really understand how much you're not aware until you really start to go down the path of microdosing, because it kind of makes everything a little bit more vibrant, like your colors become a little bit more vibrant, sounds become a little bit more enriched, your thinking becomes a little bit more enriched, and just the angles and what you're able to think, it just kind of changes and transforms. This is a modality that's used a lot of times by artists, right? Because artists, they need to be creative. So when you use psilocybin, you start to find yourself being more creative, and you start to find yourself being able to just have a different kind of connection with the things around you. And it's really kind of like, I say psilocybin is like plugging into the internet, right? Because all around us, everything is connected. But here we are in this body, and we've made ourselves an island to everything else around us, right? We've put ourselves to the point where everything is happening outside of me, and this is my body, and nothing. Where we see everything separate, right? The illusion of existence has really fogged our mind to just really not allow us to see how everything is all connected. When you start to use microdosing with the psilocybin, you feel that connection. You feel how everything is connected. You feel your connection with all the things around you.
What's something you wish you had known before either microdosing with psilocybin or taking the more powerful dosages?
So I started it to discover who I was, right? But then I went to a level where I just found out that I really don't exist. And by that, I mean, like, yeah, I'm in this physical form right now, right? And I have this, this body and this story about, Rashad Evans and everything, but that's not who or what I truly am. I'm what I am in the essence is inside of this body, right? And that is transcendent, and it's connected to everything else around me to the point where there is no separation from me and it. There's no separation from me and everything around me. So I would say that's something that took me by surprise, and it's something that I didn't expect. And another thing is the fact that once you get perspective, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you get perspective and you're like, man, you learn a lot of different things, but there's also things that pained you about your new realization, about past mistakes that you've made, that you get perspective on. And you just kind of like, damn, you know what I'm saying? And it just kind of stings a little bit more because you're operating with a new understanding, and you just kind of like, you see it, and that pains you. It hurts a little bit, it stings a little bit. So that's another thing that I really didn't expect once I got perspective.
When you started microdosing and then obviously went into the more powerful dosages, your life was in a very particular place. As you said, you'd been experimenting with functional mushrooms based on the back of the end of your career, etc. And again, I think I have the timeline right here. Would you think you would have benefited, and this is 100% an opinion and not a recommendation for people, do your own diligence and research, etc. This is Rashad's story, and the functional mushrooms, I 100% recommend to someone that takes them. This particular area, I think, do your own due diligence on. But Rashad, do you think you would have benefited taking them earlier in life, or do you think that when you took them was the right time based on, what came up and that disassociation with ego, all of that emotional constipation that would come up, and then using it as a tool? If you, knowing what you know now, do you think you would have benefited from taking it earlier in life, or did it find you at the right time?
That's a great question. And I kind of feel in both ways about it. I kind of feel as if like everything finds you exactly when you need it, and there's no need to rush. The timing that I found it was the timing that I need to find it. But at the same time, I wish I didn't have to bump my head so much growing, when I was operating in the space of just not understanding. I feel like a part of me needed to believe in the matrix in order to be successful in it. I needed to believe that everything was the way that I was taught, and everything reality was as it is, prescribed to us, right? I truly needed to believe that because, so much of the career is based off that, the whole drive to become champion, all of that, a big part of it was, the material aspect. A big part of it was an ego-driven aspect. I want to be the best, so, I can pump my chest out and say I'm the best. And that was all of things for the ego, right? But there's a way, and there's a way to compete without that. And when I came back to fight this past January, I tapped into that, and it was coming from a place of just excitement, a place of just thrill, and the fact that I get to do this. Not that I have to do this, but this is what I get to do. I'm 42 years old, and I get to go out here and fight, and this is what I love to do. This is my hobby. This is me playing. I get to play for a living. So the perspective in which I attacked it was what was a great perspective. It was a fun perspective, but I don't know if that would have led me to become champion. I don't know if it's enough strong enough carrot on the stick, because also with that mindset, I can just be like, none of it even matters anyways. You know what I'm saying? So there's a part of me that feels as if like I needed to believe in a matrix in order to achieve the goal of being a champion.
That answer helps me so much, Rashad. As somebody that my main impediment to psychedelics, whether it be psilocybin, ayahuasca, DMT, etc., is that, well, will I lose all of my drive? Will I lose the thing that makes me jump out of bed every morning? But when I hear you say that you just have another spin on it, it's part of who you are, it's part of what you love, you're just seeing it from a different element.
Yeah.
You're definitely pushing me in the direction of experimentation off the back of that. Rashad,
I'll tell you this. Like with the experimentation and everything, I would say that I didn't, everything that I've lost as far as like things that I no longer do because I started to go down the path with this modality, there were things that didn't serve me. There was not one thing that that has come as a result of me not doing because I started using psilocybin that I can say, oh man, I wish I still did it. I lost that part of me. So whatever I don't do anymore, it just it never served me as a person. And it really got rid of all the things that just truly didn't serve me.
Wow, that's such a reframe in terms of the way I've seen it. I'm definitely going to have to do some reflection and listen back to this podcast a couple of times, Rashad. I want to pull it back just because obviously we connected originally through UMBO and the evolution of what's going to be, sports nutrition when it comes to the functional medicine. So I want to just pull it back to that before we wrap up, although what we've talked on the microdosing and the powerful dosage, you've given me so much food for thought. So a massive thank you from me, seriously, in terms of helping me in navigating my own life. But with the functional mushrooms, Rashad, what's the most excited thing that excites you the most about them at the minute? Is it the branching into the mainstream that people are starting to get educated? Is it a particular mushroom that you've been experimenting with yourself that's having a positive impact? Or what area, when it comes to functional mushrooms, are you most excited about at the minute?
It's got to be the people are really starting to understand it. I foresee mushrooms as being, one of the biggest industries in the future. And I say this because, I feel like there's a whole slew of neurological disorders that are going to be coming our way on a global level, and I feel as if like when it comes to helping out the neurological body, there's nothing like psilocybin. And not even just psilocybin, but functional mushrooms in general. Like functional mushrooms, there's nothing like functional mushrooms. And here's the thing about it. Functional mushrooms does just as good as psilocybin does for the neurological body. We cannot mistake that. And, with that said, there's still so much that we're going to learn about functional mushrooms, right? And at UMBO, we have a whole science team dedicated to just really breaking down each and every single element in the functional mushrooms, lion's mane and cordyceps, breaking it all down to really get, what does what, and really isolating all these different aspects of it, because there's so much where you have to learn about it. And, the more we learn about it, the better we're going to be able to see how it can serve humanity in general. But when it comes to just truly gaining your health back, I truly put neurological health at the top of the list, because it is the thing that determines how we age, how we're aging, when you can't walk, when you can't, move or have the mobility or just kind of even, cognitively process information, these are all neurological issues. And, being able to have something to bring to the table off of, with something so detrimental as that is huge, and being part of UMBO and our research when it comes to making sure that we get to the bottom of what each and every single one of these mushrooms can do is huge. I'm excited alongside with Del Jolly and Jake Plummer because we're all we share this passion for mushrooms. And when we started the company, because we share this passion for mushrooms, Jake is such a student of the game. Jake has a mushroom farm now that he goes to, and he grows all kinds of mushrooms, and he makes tinctures, and he makes this amazing products that just are just so good and just so potent for the body. So we're really engaged, and we truly understand that we're just at the tip of the iceberg when it comes to just uncovering what these medicines can do.
Yeah, it's such an exciting time, and I think conversations like this, what you're putting out, Rashad, you and the team at Umbo, educating people on how it can help, and that's a big job of this podcast, is to show people, look, there's different alternative methods out there to support you with your health, with your gut, with your immune system, with your brain function, your logical function. I'm just very curious on that, as someone that's very into it and on the kind of the cutting edge with the team. What do you think is the most underrated functional mushroom out there? And again, I know it's a bit of a Pandora's box because there's an awareness around it, but in your eyes, what do you think is the most underrated one?
I would probably say turkey tail. That's the one for the gut, and I say that because gut health is really not taken as serious as it is. But gut is the gut is the second brain. I reached a point in my life, I could say a couple times, but more or less recently, where my gut health was so good that I felt it in my brain, to the point where it felt as almost if like I couldn't get tired. Like I wouldn't even train like consistently every single day, and I would go to the gym with these killers, guys who are in the gym every single day, just beating the hell out of their bodies and really getting ready to compete. And I'll go there just cold, really, and just go in there and push them to the limits. And I'm like, man, I'm not getting tired. My body feels great. And, just the fact that the recovery time was so fast, it was, it was like I had a second lung, and that's, something I attribute to the cordyceps, and also, the turkey tail for the gut health. So gut health, I would say, is the most important one for me.
And just the final thing that I want to unpack, which was going to be a kind of a focus of the conversation, but we went in a different direction with the microdosing and the powerful dosage, just for my own personal interest for sure, and definitely the audience too. But with sports injuries, you talked obviously neurologically. With the kind of timeline now, I know it varies greatly depending on the starting point and the injury that somebody has, but from your experience, Rashad, from taking the mushrooms to where you noticed a positive impact and effect, what was the kind of timeline? Was it in the weeks, months, years? You mentioned 2018 when you went really into this. What did you notice yourself when you started to see the benefits? Was it on the shorter end of the spectrum, medium, long end? Just to give people kind of a runway of time on expectations. Now, I know everybody is going to be individual to them, but just from your own experience.
Yeah, I noticed something like about 2 weeks. I started to notice and a little something, but I really started to feel the effects probably about a month and a half in. Like it was truly noticeable. Like okay, I'm something is definitely different. 2 weeks out, I was starting to be like, I feel different, but it was kind of coincidental. You know what I'm saying? You go to the phase where it's kind of like, I feel different, but I don't know if it's placebo. I don't know if it's because I'm telling myself this, but a month and a half, 2 months, I definitely felt a huge difference, and I knew exactly what to attribute it to.
Amazing. Rashad, I can't thank you enough for your time and for the shift in thinking that you've given me personally, as somebody that, again, was on the fence and had a lot of fears, I want to say, around potentially going down a spiritual journey, either through a microdosing or alternative path. So thank you from me, and I thank you for your time. For everyone that's listening, Rashad, where's the best place for them to find out more about you, to find out more about Umbo mushrooms, or to pick up any products or anything you want to send people to? Please do that now.
Yeah, you can find out more about what I got going on at Sugar Rashad Evans on Instagram and on Twitter. Right now, I'm launching a program right now. It's called Metodes Gang. It's my NFT project that I'm starting up, and we're about to go public sales pretty soon. You can go to metodesgang.com .io to check out the website and see what we have going on. But Metatodes is something that I created. It's an NFT that I created, and it's about the Bufo olivaris toad, which is the 5-MeO DMT toad, right? And I use that because I'm the artist, the one who drew the first Metatode. Like I drew it, and then I had some digital artists kind of make a rendition of what I drew, and we came up with the Metatode. But with the Metatode and the whole project, is primarily just speaking about the experience that I had with the Bufo olivaris toad, and also has a mental health component tied into it, because of psychedelics and research. That's a huge psychedelics and mental health. That's a huge part of another company that I work with called Unlimited Sciences. We're really good at putting together psychedelic research that helps for mental health issues, right? So the Metatodes project, there's a component in there for mental health awareness where we get some of the money and we put it to one of those mental health projects, mental health awareness and things like that. It's going to help people deal with some of these traumas that we're dealing with on a world level, because the truth of the matter is, with the world changing the way that it is, and it's changing so fast, and there's so many things scary that's happening right now, and a lot of people's feeling it. They're feeling like they don't know which way to go. Being able to have a conversation about mental health in ways that we can all connect and we can help each other out, because we're all going through our experiences individually, but truthfully speaking, we're not alone. There's not an experience that you have that I can't relate to. So we're all kind of going through the same thing, and being able to have a conversation, being able to lift each other up, and have safe places where we're able to truly let out what's going on, so we don't have that emotional buildup, that emotional constipation, is key to really helping people out when it comes to staying mentally healthy. So that's a project that I'm working on, Metatodes, and you guys check it out.
I love it. And I think, just to finally say, Rashad, I think talking about mental health, dealing with that, as somebody from your position, with your authority, former UFC light heavyweight champion, UFC Hall of Famer, I think that gives so much credence to it. Like, I try and speak about it on the podcast, but just for you to come out and talk about it and bringing that awareness to people, I think when I think the world is better because you're here, that's exactly what I think about, because you're bringing the conversation and the thinking to people that it's okay to talk about these things. So I can't thank you enough for that as well.
Thank
just to
you.
finish off, and for everybody listening, I will link everything that we've talked about in today's episodes, the Metatode, the Umbo, the Instagram page. I'm following your Instagram page, Rashad, so keep up the great work on there as well. And anyone that wants to go and follow, check out the products, check out the services, check out the NFT, please do that at the end of today's podcast. Rashad, thank you so much for all that you're doing. Thank you so much for your time, and I've absolutely loved this conversation.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate having me on.
There you have it, former UFC light heavyweight champion Rashad Evans on mind-body connection, functional mushrooms, psilocybin, microdosing with psilocybin, and the evolution in sports nutrition. One of those podcast episodes I will definitely be going back over again, and I'm so grateful for the conversation. I was speaking with Rashad off air, and we went a little bit and continued on the conversation a little bit more, so hopefully there'll be a round 2 in the future. So definitely keep me posted if this topic in particular, and going in a slightly different direction today, where we talked about microdosing with psilocybin and the more powerful dosage, the spiritual journey dosage. So keep me posted. As I said, it's slightly different to what has been covered in the past, so keep me in the loop. If you enjoyed today's podcast, you can take a screenshot, pop it up on your Instagram. You can tag me, Brian_Keen_fitness, and you can tag Rashad Evans on Instagram. That's all from me from this week. Catch you all next Monday.